Gotta go fast! So the Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out. That's something that happened. And there was a lot of talk about it before it came out. And that was largely, of course, due to the backlash of the design of the character Sonic the Hedgehog. When your movie is named after a character, it's pretty important that you get them right. And when the initial trailers came out, people made their displeasure known. Some of them were a little nicer than others, but frankly, it looked like the boy turning into a monkey from Jumanji, except this time it was a hedgehog. It didn't look great. It was too human. Part of the problem was that instead of taking Sonic's design and saying, what if that was in the real world, they instead said, what if Sonic were a real creature? And then tried to alter his anatomy so that it would make sense in science. But ultimately, we didn't need that. And I've seen the discussion now kind of shift to whether the fans were right or not. And there are a number of facets to that I wanted to address. Number one, just because the fans said that they weren't happy with this, the people behind this movie were under no obligation to change anything. Instead, they just took it upon themselves to do so after seeing the fan outcry and realizing that lots of people seem to care about this, so let's get it right. And honestly, after seeing the movie, I'm surprised that they would ever go with the previous design in the first place. The way the movie handles Sonic and all of its in-universe lore and that sort of thing, and the characters especially, makes me think that they understood what they had and what they were doing and what it takes to make an adaptation of Sonic. So I don't understand why the design choices were not in line with everything else. Even the voice actor, Ben Schwartz, said that his voice portrayal more closely matched the redesigned version. So I don't know what they were thinking to begin with. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that they ever expected that to work. And for the people out there that are wondering if the design would have actually heavily impacted the film in that way, I give you a good example from last year in The Lion King. Now, it is unquestionable that The Lion King from 2019 was a financial success. It made over $1 billion. It made more than the original Lion King. Although with inflation and 15 years of nostalgia, that's not that hard to do. The money here is not in question. What is the number of critical responses that the movie gave in saying that it just didn't feel quite the same, and you can't really because of the way that they chose to do the film. Now, the visuals do look spectacular. They look photorealistic. But that's part of the problem. By nature of, nature, animals cannot be as expressive when they look real as opposed to a more cartoonish version. So the dialogue that the people were giving, even though they were doing their best at acting, wasn't matching the same tone of the creatures on screen. And it would have come across about the same way in the original design for the Sonic movie. He could have been quipping and doing all sorts of stunts and everything exactly the same, and it still wouldn't have worked as well. As far as I know, they didn't do any reshoots or anything, didn't record any new voice parts. It was solely focused on the visual effects aspect of the main character of Sonic. So he could have done all of the exact same things he did in the movie, but I probably would have thought he was more of a jerk than a playful rogue, if they had kept the original design. People have also commented about what this might mean for the future in that a giant studio was giving in to what fans demanded. And I don't think that's the same case as they think it is. There's a difference in what happened with Sonic and another fairly recent example from last year in Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Now that movie, whatever you might think of it, you have to admit, did cave into a lot of fan demands or just expectations. Now, I was a person that enjoyed the movie. There were parts that I cheered, parts that I teared up, but even me, someone who loves Star Wars, for the first time ever sat in the theater watching the movie and thought, what are they doing here? I don't understand why they're doing this. And part of that has to do with reactions to the last movie. Now, obviously, there were some people that were very displeased with Episode 8, but I don't think it's as big a contingent as people seem to think it is. I know that there are people in my everyday life that didn't care for that movie, and that's fine. That's their choice. However, it seems that the people behind Episode 9 took that as the basis that everyone disliked the movie, and so they changed a lot of things about what happened in Episode 9 in response to negative backlash. And it wasn't for the better. You had the character of Rose Tico practically written out of the movie. People were upset that Snoke didn't matter, so then they really made him not matter by just making him a weird test tube clone thing. And people were upset that Rey was a nobody, which I enjoyed, but then they said, well, okay, she's not a nobody, she's related to a super powerful person that we already met. And none of those made any sense. First of all, because they were rushed from a story standpoint, but they just didn't flow with the narrative of the film, and that's because they were made up by other people. There's a difference in fans reacting in a way that doesn't match what they expect from a product and what they have imagined from a product. See if you can follow me on this. The reason that people were upset about Sonic is because he didn't look like he's supposed to. I imagine the same thing would have happened if the guys behind the Sonic movie said, hey, we're going to make him purple. Just because. With no actual reasoning behind it. People would have been outraged. They would say, Sonic's blue. What are you talking about? That's his thing. The reason people were upset about Sonic is because he wasn't the same relatable character that they had known for years. Not because it didn't match the theories that they had created in their own mind. So in this case, I think giving ground to the fans was the right call. Because honestly, on a personal note, I probably wouldn't have gone to see this movie if there had been no redesign. If Sonic had looked like he is in the finished product from the beginning, I don't know that I would have seen this movie until it came out on video or something. But because they listened to the fans, not because they had to listen to any demands, but because they realized they're right. They're the ones that care about this product, and we care about it too. So we're going to take the time to do it right. People weren't even mad that the film was pushed back. They said, okay, if you're gonna make Sonic the way he's supposed to be, that's fine, we'll go see it then. The difference is that giving into fans in a bad way would be that when they make the sequel to this movie, if they go online and see a bunch of made-up theories about how Shadow the Hedgehog is really Sonic from the future and he's here to make sure his past self turns evil, or Dr. Robotnik created Tails in a lab as a sleeper agent so that he could get someone in on Sonic's inner circle and he'll destroy them from the inside. I mean, those are things that people just made up. I just made them up right on the spot here. And if they put that into a movie, that would be bad. That's not what it takes to make a good adaptation. If you're going to adapt something, you might as well do it right. And the fans said as much. I mean, look at comic book movies. They often, nowadays anyway, have the comic-accurate costumes in their films. They don't have to, but they do because they know that they're making an adaptation for the fans of that source material. And it's the same with the Sonic games. Now, if you're going to make something different, like, say, Joker that just came out, you have to let people know that you're doing a radically different story, and they'll accept that and go from there. But if you're making a true adaptation of something, and you start deviating wildly, people aren't going to be happy with it. Especially for something that they've never seen before. We've never had a big-budget live-action Sonic movie, so you might as well do it accurately from the source material instead of making your own spin on it. Get it? Spin, like a spin attack? But there's no point in mixing things up to the point where you don't even recognize the character when you still haven't gotten a baseline to compare it to. All in all, I think this version of the outcry of fans versus the response from the studio is perfectly innocent, and in fact did help to make the product better. However, there are instances where giving in to what fans demand is not what's best for the project either. So I don't think you can necessarily give a blanket statement about whether giving in to fans is good or bad. I think it is largely situational and often depends on what they're demanding as well. If the fans had been demanding that Sonic look more human, that would of course be a bad thing. But what do you think about this whole situation? What do you think about giving in to fans? Are the fans always right? I say no, but also sometimes yes. Let me know your thoughts on this whole thing down in the comments. And remember to definitely go fast.